Team Awesome is back! Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Episode 4, The Forest of No Return. Before we get into the new episode, we actually want to go over the titles of the next 4 episodes that are going to be released in August, because guess what, guys? We are getting 2.5 months straight of Tangled.
Woohoo!
New episode every week.
Yes!
So excited about that. And the best part is that we don't even know if it's going to stop at the end of August. It might keep going into September. We don't know yet because we only get 1 month at a time.
This is the longest we've had, like, of continuous new Tangled things.
No, like, legitimately. Like,
we're so spoiled.
Like, I think that, like, previously we had, like, a run of 6, and then they'd, like, go on hiatus. And so the fact that I fully expected when July ended to not have any new episodes in August. And then they're like, oh, every week in August. And I'm like, excuse me? We have been gifted. What is this?
Yeah.
So, our 4 episodes in August are Keeper of the Spire, King Pascal, There's Something About Hookfoot, and Happiness Is. I'm going to ironically start with There's Something About Hookfoot, which I think that is the retitled episode, The Brothers Hook.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it's like...
I don't think so, because, like, when Mandy recorded it, it still had the production code and, like, the stuff. I don't know. I mean, I guess they do move production codes around, but it had that title, so I'm not quite sure why they'd change it. But
well, yeah, they have the production title. They will change the name of the episode all the way up to the end. Like, seriously, Queen for a Day was called Queen Rapunzel well after it had been boarded and sent off to Canada. And so, like, who knows at what point they're like, nah, we gotta change the title. I mean...
They like to change titles around here, we're beginning to realize.
Yeah. So, a lot of people are super duper excited about King Pascal, and that's got me raising an eyebrow, like not a why kind of eyebrow, just like an oh really kind of eyebrow. But honestly, I'm actually really excited for both Keeper of the Spire and Happiness Is, because I feel like going strictly by title, those 2 episodes feel the most plot relevant.
I was gonna say, I feel like we're gonna have we've got to have some kind of plot coming, something.
And Keeper of the Spire, I mean, like I'm not anticipating that we're already going to be at the Dark Kingdom at the beginning of August, but like that castle is very spiry. I am hearing like chasing things under the couch that are she probably got off of my computer desk. That makes me not happy. But yeah. So as for Happiness Is, that could be something really light and fluffy, or that could be something like really significant and I don't know, even angsty, because it's like, think about these characters and think about what they have to do to find happiness. I saw somebody on Tumblr had speculated that possibly Happiness Is going to be the Lance and Eugene episode, because
oh no,
please God,
because I didn't even think about that.
Because think about it this way: if you're looking at the point of view of a couple of orphans, what is happiness?
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
I'm not ready.
I mean, I'm on board with that idea. I'm not saying that that's what I think it is, because we literally have no way of knowing, but I'm on board with that idea of it being that. So yeah, and yeah, King Pascal. I got no clue where they're going with this. Like, I speculated when somebody asked me. I'm like, well, maybe they're gonna go someplace that everybody in the town just thinks Pascal is so great and he kind of gets worshipped for it or something like that. And that would be very interesting. It kind of reminded me of, this is going to sound really off the wall, and it's possible that neither of you have ever seen this movie, but The Chipmunk Adventure, which came out in like the late 80s. You know, Alvin and the Chipmunks. And they went, they in this like this tribe of native peoples from South America, if I recall correctly. And Theodore was being worshipped, and Alvin and Simon had to like bow to his every whim and get him everything he possibly wanted, and then it turned out that they were cannibals and they were fattening him up to eat him or something. And so I'm like, so is that the kind of direction we're going with this? It's like, is it going to be like this false sense of worship Pascal, and then he's going to turn out to actually be like, oh no, but we have to sacrifice him for whatever purpose? So,
or they just find like a kingdom of chameleons.
That could be.
That's what I was gonna say. And what if it gets even more ridiculous? What if it gets even more ridiculous? And Pascal is also a missing royal. We don't see his dad. We don't know.
an orphan and a royal, just like everybody else.
Yes. Hashtag everyone in Tangled is a missing.
It's a royal orphan.
Yep.
You get the trifecta. Well, I guess not trifecta, but you get the duality of being an orphan and a royal, and then you're like...
I would be like, really?
Yeah.
He's a literal missing. How would they even know? They're like, chameleons all look alike. Oh my god.
Dark Prince Pascal. Yep.
Okay. Gosh. So, on to the Force of No Return. Directed by Joe O, written by Kelly Hannon. Like, days before this episode aired, some anon asked me if they're like, I think it's going to be a Eugene-centric episode. I'm like, I'm not getting that sense at all. And I was so freaking wrong.
We're all wrong.
Like, oh my god, I was not expecting it to be a Eugene-centric episode. And here we go, Eugene-centric episode.
It was so good.
It was.
And I find it very funny that it's got such, like, a split review. Mm-hmm. And... I really enjoyed it. Like, I really enjoyed this episode. It was like, to me, it was this great balance of funny and serious. And it's like, everything that was happening was technically serious, but it wasn't intense serious the way that, like, the serious episodes are serious. But it's like, they're legitimately in this, you know, Forrest is trying to kill them. So, like, and it's interesting because I have seen... on Tumblr, Shadow Weirdo, who roleplays as Adira, has been doing a lot of, like, Adira analysis with what little we've gotten of her so far. And they made this interesting observation that Adira is kind of like what Cassandra wants to be. That she's this excellent fighter and she's, like, really confident in her abilities, but, like, genuinely confident, so confident that she's calm, you know? And so it's like, nothing actually rattles her because she's just right in that zone all the time. And the first time through watching this episode, I really did get the sense of, well, now that Eugene and Cassandra are, like, legitimately friends and aren't really at each other's throats hardly at all anymore, they need something new to antagonize Eugene, because Eugene is fantastic when he's being antagonized.
Yeah.
And so this was a great opportunity to give us that. And one of the things I love that I guess a lot of people didn't love, but Eugene, while being antagonized, was also entirely wrong. And I really love that this series is highlighting people's major flaws. And it's like, look, these are a bunch of great characters, but what makes them great is that they're not perfect. And if they were perfect, this would be a freaking boring show, you know? I don't want this to be so completely obviously one-sided that it's no fun for me.
I think he's perfect.
Season 2 is the season of flaws. Like, honestly,
yes,
it's the season of flaws.
It's so great. I'm looking forward to seeing more people's flaws. Like, let us see more of Cassandra's. Like, because I feel like Cassandra's flaws are going to be a little bit more, like, serious, because she's already so, like, she takes herself so seriously that broadcasting her flaws is a big deal to her. You know. But. Speaking of people who are flawless, how is Lance, like, so amazing? He's so amazing. And
he was so cute.
I love the way they're handling this episode, or handling this relationship in this episode, in that he is blatantly crushing on Adira, and it's very clearly one-sided, and they somehow managed to do it in such a way that makes Lance not creepy, and makes Adira not, like, a jerk about it. It's like, no, she doesn't reciprocate, and I'm okay with that for all of eternity. She never has to reciprocate, you know?
Yeah.
Lance is just so freaking cute about this, just so openly admiring her. And, like, I was pointing out to Kelsey earlier today, because I rewatched the episode, and at the end of the episode when Adira's walking away and she's like, oh, that's because I'm amazing, and Lance just nods in agreement, and then he turns to Eugene and he keeps nodding in agreement, and then Eugene just, like, smiles at him knowingly and puts his hand on his back, and Eugene's like,
oh, that's so cute.
So cute.
Solidarity.
It's cute. So great. I love it so much. And I mean, and it's like, honestly, like I said, I am perfectly okay if that relationship never goes anywhere, because it's so cute, exactly the way it is, you know?
Every line that came out of his mouth was so good.
Oh my gosh, right?
Oh yeah, the whole episode, like real men have a thing for strong women or whatever.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, strong women. It's like, oh my gosh, that's
He's
so
like,
great.
You're amazing.
And then it's like, who actually cares what they're called? Raise your hand. Lance,
put your hand down, Lance. This is my favorite part. I think my favorite part about these episodes this season so far is like you notice things that you missed on like the first and even the second viewing. Like there's lines in this one that I was like, oh my god, I never heard them say that.
Well, a lot of the lines I noticed in this one, a lot of the lines, especially between Adira and Eugene, a lot of the lines are spoken under their breath. Like they really just kind of like mutter half of what they're saying, and it's like you have to go back and rewatch to make sure you catch it all because it's just so subtle, and I love it, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like, so I think a lot of people's issues with it, I mean, I know a lot of people had trouble with the pacing, and I personally like the pacing. Part of it is that you have to understand that in a show, when you have 22 minutes to tell your story, you know that there's some stuff that got cut that would have made the pacing better. But they're like, okay, well, for time constraints, we have to do it this way. And so it's like, I kind of feel like the build up to getting past the geysers, and then all of a sudden Eugene drops away in his own land pit and ends up somewhere else. That was a little like, and then suddenly, you know. So I mean, I understand what they're saying, but for what they had, for the time they had, I think it was paced pretty well in my opinion. And I have no issues with how flawed Eugene was being in this episode, because that was literally the point of the episode. It was like he had to learn to swallow his pride. He had to learn to accept other people's help, and that he doesn't always have to be the best, even when he was previously the best at this, you know? And I mean, I observed on Tumblr that in, you know, Tangled the movie, he's all, I don't do backstories, and then in the series, he's telling people snatches of his backstory every 5 minutes, you know?
That's my favorite post, where they're like, I was an orphan, and I had nothing!
Leave him alone with somebody for 5 minutes, and he will open up to them about his past, and that's like, the dude has so much character development, and he is, as I've said before, he communicates more than anybody else in the series, you know? He's like, I'm sorry I'm being this way, but I have a tragic backstory, okay? You know?
Well, in the one part that killed me, what does he say? It's when he's having his, you know, come to moment, and he says something like, that was the only, like, constant I had. And I was like, don't say that, that makes me sad. I was like, that's backstory. It's really vague, but it's backstory.
Yeah. So that's a building. See, I also feel like focusing on Eugene in the first episode and then focusing on him in this episode, which is not that far in yet, this is only the 4th episode of this season, goes back to what I said previously about how I really feel like this is going to be a Eugene episode. Or not episode, but season. Like season 2 is going to really focus on him and his past and who he is. And
Eugene season, eh? No, I know we're getting.
So have a problem with that.
I know we're getting all the things I've ever wanted, pretty much. So I'm good. I'm so good and ready for this season. Yeah, I'm ready to see my Fitz dad and my Fitz mom and see them being Fitz parents.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that would be wild. I'd cry. I think we'd all cry, but
I hope that episode comes out on a day that I do not have to work the next day, because I'm gonna have to call in. I'll be like, I'm so sorry, I can't come into work today, and they'll be like, oh, are you feeling sick? And I'll be like, no, I got to meet Fitz dad and Fitz mom, okay?
They're like, what? That was me after Beyond the Corona Walls. I need a moment.
The second I saw those vines that are like, you have to relax to get out of them, it's like, oh, that's the devil snare from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or as it's known in the UK, the Philosopher's Stone.
Yep.
Why are we stealing from Harry Potter, guys?
And then also right away.
The way the pup shrooms move is very Fantasia-esque.
Well, I agree with you, but at the same
that's
time,
probably just how.
They're the mushrooms. How else are they gonna? I mean, like they're the one little stump and they gotta hop around. I remember back in the day, there's this episode of Darkwing Duck where Morgana made these magical mushroom monster things, and they were the exact same way. In fact, they were even more like the pupshrooms because they had like teeth and bit people also.
Interesting.
But it's so it's because you've got the one little you have the squishiness of the fungus and the one little stump, and so I just that's how mushrooms move, and it's like I've always thought that. So you're not wrong, but it's also not a coincidence, you know?
Yeah. It's true.
It's a coincidence, I suppose, is more accurate.
I love how poor Eugene has to always take the brunt of like all this new magical stuff. Like nobody else does. It's just him, and he's like, "Oh my gosh."
Okay. You go back to the movie, and you get the impression that until he met Rapunzel, he did not believe in magic.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of get the impression that
it seems like there's a lot of magic.
Well, it makes me wonder if Rapunzel is actually kind of the catalyst to making magic exist in the world. Like, it's like the sun drop has always been there, and of course you have to do the retcon thing and go back and look at how the moon drop has clearly always been there too, because if the moon drop and the sun drop fell at the same time, blah, 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 blah. But it could have been that magic was relatively rare, but somehow Eugene managed to avoid it his whole life, wandering around in the wilderness.
Yeah, I know.
So now, I mean, I'm glad that like it doesn't freak him out anymore. Like he doesn't go on his rambling sprees, which I would love. I would kill for another rambling spree. Like, oh my gosh,
please,
I would kill
writers.
I missed that. The last time I got it was with the hair, and that was the last time, and I'm ready for another one.
Yes.
I know it's already been written, like all of the season, but please, please, please.
Mick, you can do a rewrite. You haven't done the voices yet. You can do a rewrite. But yeah, so you get the impression that somehow Eugene managed to avoid magic his entire life, and therefore magic is startling the hell out of him on a regular basis. And it's kind of adorable how he's just having to like, well, here we go again, you know? Here's something new magical trying to kill me, go figure. Speaking of things trying to kill people, what the heck? I mean, I said I wanted Lance's arachnophobia to be a thing, and that's been a thing in 2 episodes.
Poor Lance.
And honestly, I am like waiting for it to be another major thing, because yes, him being bitten by a spider was a major thing, but then he was, fortunately for him, he was unconscious for most of it and wasn't really having to deal with the fear. I want to see him have to face that fear. Like, what if he had to, like, rescue Red on the other side of a room full of spiders or something?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's so angsty.
That's what I want. I want him to have to face spiders in order to care for somebody he cares about.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, that'd be great. Right, so back on Adira, there was a brief conversation a couple days ago where somebody asked me what the fandom's opinion of her makeup was, or her face paint in general. And at the time, there was no fandom opinion. Like, I'm sure that random people have thrown out thoughts on it, but there had been no general consensus, no real discussion about this. So I responded what my thoughts might possibly be, and Ben Balistreri actually responded to me. And so he clarified that, yes, it is face paint, which makes me wonder, are we ever going to see her without face paint on? You know, that'd be an interesting thing.
That'd be fun.
As if there was some sort of a reveal something or another, or a vulnerability, and she didn't have her makeup on during the vulnerability to, like, kind of, you know, parallel the vulnerability. But also he specified that it's a half-hidden purpose, that we aren't entirely supposed to trust her at this point, because we don't actually know enough about her to trust her. And hearing Ben say that makes me take a step back and look at her and say, okay, well, while I don't feel like you have ulterior motives, Ben is right that we don't know enough about her. The first thing we ever heard of her, she was given this task to keep people out of the Dark Kingdom, and now she's here deliberately guiding them through the Dark Kingdom.
Yeah.
Ever since the beginning, I've been like, I like you, I like your attitude, but I don't trust you yet.
Yep.
I don't trust you. Like, sorry, not sorry. I don't trust you, Adira.
But you, like you said, she's helping them. So you're like, so what is your motive here? Like, what's making you do this? What happened that made you switch and go against whatever you were told?
I wonder if it has to do with Rapunzel's hair specifically, that she was there and she was fighting them, and then she discovered that the rocks were not reacting to her hair because her hair is the sun drop, and now that the rocks have found the sun drop, so maybe she's guiding them back to the kingdom in order to use Rapunzel to stop the opal, you know? Mm. Because Varian had previously discussed that the sun drop was the only way to stop the oncoming darkness. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, I mean, Rapunzel's destiny is still really, pardon the pun, in the shadows. Mm-hmm. And so this is all going to be really interesting. And that's another thing that makes the idea of Eugene being the Dark Prince, like, intriguing. Mm-hmm. Because if his supposed destiny is supposed to be directly opposed to Rapunzel's destiny, and he's going to be like, screw you.
Oh,
you know?
Man.
Like, there is no way that I'm going to turn my back on her for you, you know?
Oh my gosh, that's so angsty. So yes.
Freaking exciting to me. Like, so many angsty possibilities from Jane having angst about Rapunzel and about his dad and just...
And honestly, another thing about the idea of him being the Dark Prince over, say, for example, Varian, is going back to what I keep saying about season 2 being about him. Mm-hmm. And so, sure, we don't know for a fact that we're going to be in the Dark Kingdom at the end of season 2, and it's not a foregone conclusion, but I do suspect we will be in the Dark Kingdom by the end of season 2.
Yeah.
And therefore, that will still be during Eugene's story arc, you know?
Well, they did say, and I can't remember what interview it was or what it was, but they said that they have a story to tell with him. And, and I feel like it's not going to be some half-assed little story. I think it's something
No. Oh, no. I mean, I'm so strongly, I'm completely convinced that season 2 is Eugene's story and Eugene and Rapunzel's story. Yeah. And that obviously everybody else is not just tagging along, but like these two are the focal characters, and this is going to be about them and their development and their relationship development and their individual development. This is going to be Eugene's backstory. This is going to be, you know, who he is as a person. And then season 3 might be what he has to make of who he now is, you know? I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, so yeah, I think that's another good reason to think. I mean, assuming that anybody is the heir of the Dark Kingdom at all. I mean, it's like we are.
It's all speculation.
It's all speculative. It's not like, you know. I'm not 100% convinced, but I do like the idea of it. Is what it comes down to.
It's growing on me.
And honestly, I know a lot of people
sold on it, but like, it's not a foregone conclusion. I have evidence, but it's not solid evidence. Like, I couldn't win a court case with this. Be like, he's the father.
Like, no, this is all speculative evidence, Ellie. I'm sorry.
I need a little more. I need some DNA evidence, maybe.
And I know that, like, a lot of people don't want Eugene to be a prince. They feel like that's cheap, that Eugene, that it makes everything he went through pointless to make him a prince at the end. But that's why I like the idea of him rejecting it. That, like, he showed up, and I also really like the idea of, like, I would love for somebody in this series to walk away from the series without a good relationship with their father. Like, seriously, I would love that, because you know what? Not everybody has a good relationship with their father. It would be kind of awesome to have it reflected in this series. So, so that's another reason that, like, I'm not hard sold, but every time I think of a little thing, I'm like, oh, well, I do have another reason why it might be the case, you know? So, yeah, it's fun times. And I mean, and I have seen some interesting evidence towards Varian, or at least Kieran specifically. Like, there are a lot of physical similarities between Kieran and King Edmund. I will give them that. Yeah. And so, I mean, there are, and there are cinematic parallels between Kieran being trapped in amber and Kieran saving Edmund from the rock falling and all that stuff. So, and but the question is that foreshadowing, or is it the same border, or is it just they did that on purpose to, like, make it look and feel like the same series, or, like, what is the purpose behind that, if there was indeed a purpose at all? I mean, I know that there are times when we the fans, and this goes for any fandom whatsoever, there are times when we the fans will find hints and foreshadowing that were not ever intended to be hints and foreshadowing, and the writers sit back and go, yeah, okay, we'll take it. We'll take it.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, yeah, sure, yeah, that was on purpose, yeah. So, I mean, that could be a case like this, that it's like, oh, well, that wasn't intended to be anything, but if you want to see it as something, we'll absolutely smile and nod and pretend that was the point all along. So, yeah, I mean, I say this every week, and I know it's only been 4 episodes so far, but I'm really looking forward to seeing where this series is going. Like, every new episode is just so intriguing, and it's pulls me in farther than previously.
Yeah.
So I know that next episode is Freebird, which I am still wary about, but I will, I'll try to keep it open while I'm watching it. But honestly, the thing that has amused me the most about this episode so far is that the crew has been making birdsonas of themselves.
Yes.
And I think that's
hysterical. Oh my God, they're so funny.
And they're so cute. And it's really funny to see what these artists think of themselves vis-a-vis birds. You know? I look at that egret or crane or whatever it is that Tom was supposed to be. I'm like, yeah, tall, gangly, big nose. Yeah, I can see how Tom would make himself that. Or how Kate made herself this tiny dark sparrow. And I'm like, yeah, you're a tiny dark sparrow. I can see that. Yep. It's like, I'm really loving seeing how they are portraying themselves. And I hope in the next week we get to see more of those. Because I've only seen 3 actual members plus an additional one that somebody who was a friend of both Kate and Wendy wanted a birdsona and said she would be a cockatiel, so they both drew her as a cockatiel. So,
oh, nice. I think Anna made one.
You think
she
Anna
had one on her? Yeah, she had one on her Instagram earlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
I missed that one.
Yeah.
I guess I'll have to hunt that down so I can post it for everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I'm loving the birdsonas, and that's highly amusing. But I mean, honestly, them making birdsonas of themselves tells us, all it tells me personally is that they're probably attempting to go for actual kinds of birds when they transform them. That they're not going to like, oh yeah, we made this up just to suit our purposes. It looks to me like they're going for real birds. And that being the case, it opens up a little bit of speculation about what kind of birds they're going to be again. And the only really hard case thing I have heard was actually from my sister, and she's like, well, I think Eugene would be a blue jay because they're like blue and they're thieves. And I'm like, that's not a terrible thing to have come up with. I'm like, but he's an ex-thief, so he's an ex-blue jay or something. I don't know. But also, when you look at the way blue jays are, if they give him like a body that's the same color as his current doublet shirt thing, and then like give him like a brownish black head to match his hair, I'm like, yeah, that'll look great. Okay, what if they like mess up with his beak on purpose?
Be awesome.
They screw up his beak on purpose and they make his nose wrong. That'd be great. Oh my god.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm curious to see how it's going to play out.
I'm getting more curious the closer we get to the actual episode. It's just when I first saw the description, I was like, oh, what? You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and honestly, when you look at the description of the episode, it doesn't tell you anything. And somebody's at least tell you something, you know? Like, you look at the description of Forest of No Return, and like, oh, they get stuck in this forest, and so Adira has to help them out. You know, like, okay, that is basically the plot, you know? But they're like, oh, they get turned into birds.
You're like, what?
Okay.
What?
And then what happens?
All right. Birds.
However, also, if they left the Forest of No Return, that makes it a completely different magical forest that they're about to walk into.
Oh,
Which,
poor
like,
Eugene.
How did you never run into magic if you're like into magical forests aplenty now?
Because he went around them.
Amazing.
You're this wilderness survivor, and your wilderness instincts told you to avoid the magical forest. You're like, oh look, swamp, I'm going around it. Oh look, weird feeling, I'm going around it. And he just avoided magic altogether until he met Rapunzel.
And that's why he's king of the wild. So
even if Eugene isn't the Dark Prince, at least he'll always be king of the wild.
So, since I'm new dream trash, I'm going to go back to Forest of No Return and talk about how adorable Rapunzel was and how much she supported him even when he was being stupid.
Oh my god. doing everything in her ability to be as supportive as possible and speak to him as kindly and gently as possible. And I freaking adored that so much. Like, just...
How she stayed in those vines just so he could, like, continue what he was doing. Even though she knew she could get out. That was so cute.
Please not relax. And she's like, yeah, okay. You know? Or like,
okay, sweetie.
Or when he got them all over the geysers and they realized they were back at the beginning and everybody started yelling at him. She didn't yell at him. She just kind of...
She's like,
you know? So honestly, I really hope that, considering that Cassandra and Lance were really in his face about making bad choices, I really hope they felt terrible that he disappeared a moment later and then they were stuck without Eugene and they had no idea, you know, where he went, when they'd see him again. That'd actually be an interesting little fic about like, oh yeah, so meanwhile, during those 2 hours, here's how everybody else felt for the last thing they ever said to Eugene being yelling at him.
Oh. Poor babies.
Oh, and Rapunzel was probably all worried. Oh man, I wish we could have seen that.
Oh man. So cute.
Oh, and this random side note, I haven't seen anybody mention it, but I've noticed it ever since the very first time I watched the episode. Did it strike anybody else that map of Adira's was made of, like, metal?
Yeah, the noise. Like, sometimes it sounded like, and I was like, that is a strong paper map.
It has this metallic sheen on it, and then every time they move it, it kind of like, I want to say it reminds me of the sound of sheet metal. Like, clearly it's not actual sheet metal because it was folded, but it's also like an enchanted map, obviously. But it's like, this map is made of freaking metal. That's kind of metal, you know? So yeah, everything about that episode was it was delightful. Also, any episode that spends the entire episode antagonizing Eugene is a delight to me.
Yep.
Like when Cassandra v. Eugene was a delight to me, and the return of Strongwell was a delight to me, and Big Brothers of Corona was a delight to me. Just piss off Eugene and I'm happy. And I don't know why, but that is absolutely how I feel every time an episode with that comes on. And just like,
I'm like, I love him, but make his life difficult.
Yeah.
I want to watch him struggle.
That's how I feel about everybody, because, or at least everyone who ends up Tangled ever after. Because I'm like, your life can get super difficult, but it's all gonna be fine.
Yep. Hurt him.
The wedding, it'll be great.
Well, at least as far as
cause them pain.
At least as far as that is concerned, Chris has outright said that some people it will be explained, and some people you're just gonna have to assume the camera never panned over to them. So therefore, everybody is up in the air. Like we're like, okay, so people might survive or they might not, and they'll explain some things and they won't explain other things, and this is gonna be interesting.
I wonder if they would kill off a main character.
See, I wouldn't put it past them. Honestly, I think that the fact that they killed off someone who they brought back to life right away, and they destroyed the tower, and then they like almost killed several people in season 1. I think that is literally just warming up. Like, I will not put it past them if they choose to kill somebody.
No, but Eugene was resurrected, so like people could be resurrected.
Yeah, we can have death and resurrection. Can't say for sure that nobody's going to die.
Yeah, we can't say that. Not gonna, like, people could die.
Yeah.
Yep. And people could die and be brought back, or people could die and not be brought back, and it's like it's a freaking like Russian roulette over here. Like we have a crapshoot. We have no idea what these people's lives are going to be like by the end of the series. You know, it's like honestly, going by the character dynamics that we have thus far, I feel like Hookfoot will be safe and one of those people that we just will have to take their word for it. He's fine. The camera just never panned over to him. He's got that kind of character niche in the series. But like Cassandra and Lance and Angry and Red and
that would be so sad.
And characters who we've never met. Like, you gotta remember, there's a lot of characters that we have never met, and we might get very attached to, you know?
If anybody hurts Lance, I'm gonna riot.
Like, I
riot.
know studio
I know.
Is, and I know that some of them will
I know
still be
where you
working there.
Everyone.
Just barge down the door.
You are 10 minutes from my house. I can come after you.
I'll just stand outside the studio with my normal protesting chant, which is from, well, some of the people who work there would get it, because some of the people who made the thing work there. But yeah.
And so I guess that about wraps up our thoughts on this episode, Force of No Return. So we'll see you guys next week. And next week, Kelsey is actually going to be away on her honeymoon. And so you guys are going to get to have a guest speaker who we're going to keep secret for now, although we already know who it is and they already know who they are. But we're keeping the secret for now. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. And I'm sincerely hoping I have good things to say about the next episode.
Yeah!